Life for the Nepalese people was forever changed following two destructive earthquakes. On April 25th, a 7.8 magnitude earthquake struck Nepal, killing more than 8,000 people and injuring 16,000 others. It's now described as Nepal's worst natural disaster on record. And then 17 days later, on May 12th, another powerful earthquake shook the country, killing dozens more and crippling infrastructure. CCTV's Andy Saputra joins us now from Kathmandu. Andy, thanks so much for joining us. 1 month on, how is conditions there in Kathmandu and beyond the Nepalese capital?
Right, in Kathmandu here, Nathan, the city is slowly trying to get back to normal, but make no mistake that this is still a country in crisis, as many of the earthquake victims here have not received basic sheltering needs. And as you mentioned on the timeline there, the monsoon season is approaching fast to Nepal, and these people will be still out in the open facing the elements. We went around the country here and found many of the villages perched up high on the Himalayan mountains have received very little or no aid. The reason for this is that aid agencies are struggling, to physically get to the locations. These are very remote locations. You cannot get to it by trucks, or but you can only get to it by hiking a few days into these villages. So this dampened the aid efforts here to get relief to those people in need. And the second point is that the aid agencies are still struggling to meet the funding that they need to do what they need to do to help Nepal. According to the UN resident coordinator of Nepal, that they only have around 22% of the funding that they need to help this country. So this is definitely a race against time before the monsoon to at least get these people sheltered.
More money needed. Andy, you were there May 12th when the second earthquake hit. What was that like for you and also the people that you're with? It must have been extremely scary and people still very, very worried about other earthquakes, correct?
That's right, Nathan. It was extremely terrifying. I mean, you can visibly see the ground shook back and forth, and you can hear all around you this cracking sounds from the buildings around you. And people that we were surrounded by, we were shooting at a tent city where people were just trying to get back to their normal life. We were featuring a shopkeeper who was just opening up his shop after being hit by the first earthquake. And you can see people running, scared, yelling across the street and trying to get to open spaces. It was complete chaos at the time. And even after the aftershock was finished, people were still shaken and still crying. And even now, 1 month on, when I speak to people on the ground, they all have it in the back of their minds. It is something that they are already traumatized with. Little aftershock, and everyone is still running out on the streets crying here.
The response from Nepal's neighbours, though, has been swift and strong. China's government obviously supplying a lot of aid very, very quickly. Just bring us up to date on what Beijing has brought in and what they're doing medium and long term as well.
That's right. This rescue mission, this relief mission from China is one of the biggest Chinese relief mission that China has sponsored outside of its own borders for a natural disaster, and we can see it on the ground. It's very prominent. A lot of the tents here came from the Chinese government. We have a Chinese medical team on the ground here, which I met up with, and they have built field hospitals. They've been treating thousands of patients since the first day, as they were the first ones to get into the country. And also they're dealing with the possibilities of a secondary disaster here in Nepal, which is disease prevention, because as many people live in tents in close proximity, it's a perfect breeding ground for bacteria to grow and causing outbreaks. So there are a lot of disease prevention activities being done by the Chinese government. And what's very much important for the Nepalese here is that the Chinese government have also sponsored training sessions with these Chinese experts so that when they leave, Nepal can have a long-lasting health care in their country. Nathan?
Helping people to help themselves. Thank you so much, Andy Saputra in Kathmandu, for joining us.